Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you once again on this here Shabbat. Hope all of you have been blessed and had a good week. As for me, I think I'm getting over the hump with my berry or whatever it was. I said my vitamin B deficiency or whatever. It seems to be helping. So thank Elohim for that, and give him all the praise and the glory. Old scrappy beard here. One of the things I want to kind of talk about today got me on the idea of doing this video. I was talking to one of my brothers that is one of my subscribers, and he had brought me to the attention of a video that is on YouTube. It's called I've got it wrote down here so I would get it right. It's called The Lost History of Earth. And of course, what I'm going to preface it with is what Yahushua said in Matthew chapter 8, verse 17 and 18. He says, "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." And so, and then also in Luke 12, in verses 2 and 3, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops." Okay, now me and him was discussing this, since he kind of brought it to my attention, and we both wanted to kind of just chew on it a little bit, ponder on it, and then kind of discuss it, what we think about it. Now, I don't agree with everything the guy prefaces in it, but a lot of it makes complete sense. That there was some kind of a reset, and they have been actively covering up this civilization that existed, and we're actually beginning to see some of it leaking out. And this is because the truth is being revealed. We're in the last days, and he said, when he comes, right before he comes, and when he comes, all the truth is going to be coming out, everything. And all this stuff that's been done in secret, all of it has been hidden, all of it's been covered up, all this stuff that's going on. And one of the things in this video, the lost history of the earth, and I'd seen this kind of stuff in the past. Now, I didn't ask the questions that this guy asked and come to the conclusions, but one of the things that really struck me as odd was, I'd see a documentary or be reading a book or something about these, let me get my thing here and turn this light so look. Stop that, girl. The cat's wanting to. This light's a little bit too bright for me. These old world structures, like these great big cathedrals and stuff, and how ornate and how complex these structures are, and yet these people are riding around in horses and buggies, and on foot, and yet they're trying to convince you that they built these things back then. These great cathedrals over in France and over in Germany and over in Italy, and that they built these things. And so my question when I would see these things, well, what happened? I mean, I thought we were getting more advanced, more progressive. How come we can't do that anymore? What happened to that knowledge? What happened to that technology? And how were these people that did not even have mass manufacturing? There was, the Industrial Revolution at the time when these are supposedly constructed in the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th century. They didn't have the production capability to make, massive amounts of glass, cutting stone, the massive amounts of stonework that's in these buildings, the intricate inlays, the intricate columns, the capstones. I mean, all of this stuff, inside these big domes with the intricate panels in there, that are geometric in shape, and they tell you, oh, well, that was just artistic. It's just artistic expression, Well, no, they actually had a purpose. But, I mean, I didn't understand that back then, but I did question what happened to that knowledge. How come that we're building all these shanties, these what, in my opinion, compared to them would be shanties. Even these tall edifices that we building everywhere are really, they're like tin cans in comparison. I mean, they're very simple. They're just boxes, basically, vertical boxes with steel, skeletons and glass. As were these structures back then were enormous. I mean, enormous structures. And they say, oh, well, it took 150 years to build that. But then in some instances, like over in England over there, this lord or whatever, of a castle or something, over a big castle, and they claim they built them too. With all these elaborate moats and waterways and canals and all of this stuff, even though they didn't have no machines. This is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And I believe it is, that their agenda was to bring us to a technocracy where they have absolute control over humanity. And humanity is so dumbed down and so, and our attention span has been so greatly diminished that we can't, that we won't question anything. We don't have the attention span to focus so that we can see the stuff that they've been redirecting us away from all these years, which is, and I mean, they have footage, when they first got the first early moving pictures, footage of these people that were dressed exquisitely, the elite, riding on moving sidewalks. I mean, and then like the 1893 exhibition there, in the Columbia exhibition up there in Chicago, where, I mean, that place was lit up like you would not believe. And yet, they tell you that the first electric power plant in this country that was built by Tesla and George Westinghouse up on the Niagara River was built around the early 1900s. Late 18, early 1900s. So you mean to tell me they've already electrified Chicago? Before they've even got the first electric power plant built? I mean, come on. What they were doing is they were using this technology that had been, left after this reset, the mud floods. I mean, you can go and this is something that they've been keeping this, and it's right there in plain sight. I mean, this guy's showing these cities like Moscow that they say, oh, at that time in history, back in those days, their population was 500,000. And there wasn't a living soul to be seen anywhere in that photograph. Anywhere. Same with Paris. Same with London. All these big cities, these pictures of these places, and there is not a living soul anywhere in these pictures. And they had photography then. I mean, what was his name? Daguerre. He come up with the first real photographic system and daguerreotypes. And there's nobody in these cities. And then all of these orphan trains and all these orphanages and stuff all over the world. What happened to millions of orphans everywhere. What happened to their parents? They killed them off. The elite, the ones who rose up to power and that have always been here. And then look at, the rise of the Rothschilds, the Red Shields, around that same period of time when this reset happened. And you look at all these pictures, when they do start showing you pictures of actually people there, they're digging up all of this mud that is everywhere. And these buildings, they try to say, oh, well, they were built on top of these structures and all that. But then when they dig down below the surface level of that mud and they dig on down, you find that these buildings are contiguous. There's nothing built on top of it. There actually is the same structure because it got buried down, the first floor of it or whatever got buried in the mud. And then another thing, Vladimir Putin, he kind of spilled the beans on them a little bit. And he was supposed to be one of these new young, leaders, of the new world order. But I think he kind of pulled an okie doke on them. Because they have the Russians and the Russian people that know the truth, they do not have anything for them people but disdain. I think he just, fell in there to find out what their plans was. And what their plan was to take over Russia and divide it up into like 5 regions over there. And then to go in and do like they do everywhere, rape and pillage the land. All of the resources. And do the same thing they've done to the United States. Rape and pillage the wealth and the natural resources and then leave the place desolate. Like they do all these third world countries. Same thing. They just, they're here to kill, steal, and destroy. But Putin, when he had this interview with Tucker Carlson, and that's why, man, there was so much outrage about it. You're a traitor, but he's a journalist. And of course, I believe he's controlled opposition too, but they're having to reveal this stuff. And one of the things Putin pointed out is that we stole all of that area over there in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, all the way up to Alaska, Vancouver, and all over there. We took, and we done this. Supposedly, we ain't even a nation at this time. This is before Lewis and Clark went out there, and he's saying that we did this back then. This is before 1776. This is before, now, yeah, there was conquistadors, Spanish conquistadors south down there in South America and down in Southern California and that area down in there at that point in time. But they were just barely getting there. They didn't reach Northern California until much later. So, and you can go out there, out west, to the northwest out there, and there's Russian-style architecture all over the place. Tartarian. And you listen to what Putin was saying on there. He was giving a historical lesson about the way, he didn't go into the minutia, but he was kind of coming out telling you that there was this civilization, Tartaria. Because there's these star forts and stuff all over the world, all over the what we call the northern hemisphere, but the earth is not a sphere, it's a flat plane, but in what we call the north, all across there was this civilization. And the remnants of it is, and you see it in these structures with these spires, these cone-shaped spires, these onion domes, and they're made out of metal and stuff. And they got these aerials like antennas coming off of them. They were wirelessly transmitting electricity, and they were capturing it out of the air because there's voltage. This is a well-known fact that as you go further and further up from the surface of the earth, because the earth is considered a ground plane, it's at 0 volts. But as you move up, it's 100 volts, 200 volts, 300 volts, and it goes all the way up into the hundreds of millions of volts. And if you were up in the air, if you get up in the air high enough and you had a wire attached to the ground, it would kill you. You would get electrocuted. And I mean, it's been proven. I mean, this guy they done it as an experiment. They built a pyramid. And it was a wooden one, they built it out of wood. But it's the same size, same kind of structure, and it has the same, and they built it with the same ratios that like the Great Pyramids built. And so they built this pyramid, and at the top of it, they put this crystal up there, any other time, and see, I guess it's old age. I don't know. It might be Alzheimer's or whatever. But this quartz crystals. They put a quartz crystal, a big one, up there at the very top. And then this guy was he had a ground wire attached to the ground down there, and he got up there. And when he got up there close enough up to that thing, it knocked him almost through the side of that structure. There was a discharge from it, and it discharged and hit him before he ever even got close to it, because the potential was that high. It's well known. I mean, like I say, I've got a background in electronics and electrical. I was an industrial electrician and electronics technician, and so I understand about, like, with these high voltage transmission lines up there, that's 500,000 volts and stuff. You don't have to touch one of them. If you get within 5 or 6 feet of one of them wires, it will, if you're grounded, it will fry you like a piece of bacon. I mean, it's just, it'll jump from there like a lightning bolt. It will jump. And that's why these clouds that are up really high, these strato clouds and stuff, where this lightning and all is being generated up there through ionization, and it's because of that potential. It's all the way up, it's already there. And so whenever it builds up enough, it discharges to the ground. But it's not really going to the ground, it's coming from the ground going up. So the lightning actually strikes up. Now there is cloud to ground lightning, where it actually comes from and discharges to the ground, but most of the time you can actually see slow motion photography of it, and you can see it taking off from the leader taking off from the ground and heading up. So if the differential it like builds up, and once that gap is closed up where the charge is building up in the atmosphere, when it then it shoots up there to that cloud or whatever. And then you have these sprites and stuff that are up there near the firmament that discharge down, so all kinds of phenomenon like that. But these people back then, they understood this stuff, and so did Tesla. He really had an understanding of this stuff, but he wanted the idea was to make people believe that it was something new, that nobody had ever done this stuff before, to distract you and draw you away from this earlier stuff. And so they the connection there is that there was some kind of a reset that they instituted. They had the technology and or whatever to create this mud flood using technology, and using whatever technology that they had access to that could actually create liquefaction, which is something that happens when there's earthquakes. You have liquefaction, but on a worldwide scale. And of course, that was another thing that Tesla also showed. And I mean, he was kind of telling us, without telling us, that this is how this stuff works, resonance and stuff, sound, vibration, electromagnetism, and water. All of these things work together to produce this worldwide system, this worldwide electrical grid. And they stored the potential of it in these big water columns and stuff. They were like, they acted like a big capacitor or something, and stored this voltage for whenever they needed it. And there was coils, like induction coils and stuff like that. I mean, when you get to looking at these structures, and if you know the fundamentals of Kirchhoff's current laws and voltage laws, and the way coils are made and stuff like that, then you can begin to look at these structures and you can see these things in them. You can see these coils, and but they're just a little different. They're a little more advanced level of it. And so my belief is that one of the reasons why that there was all these orphans was they were brainwashing these people, these kids. They were taking them to these institutions and stuff, and when they went there, they were brainwashing them, getting rid of their identity and their memories and putting new ones in them, and so that they would begin the process of building this society that they wanted, that would lead to a technocracy, a system that is where you're just like a drone or something, that you don't know anything about your past. And if you look at all this stuff that's been going on here in America, where this Lincoln Project and all that stuff, where they're trying to get rid of any of our past and completely rewrite it. Because there are those, people my age and older, and even some younger, that they I think have been awakened, and even earlier on that have been awakened years ago to begin to question the narrative. And so these people see this. They see this beginning of this awakening and this revealing. And so they know that they don't have a whole lot of time left. So they're ramping it up. That's why you see this ramping up of these storms and all this kind of, chaos and disaster, is to try to usher it in, this new reset. But this time the reset is going to be, again, a technocracy whereby everything is under the supervision and control of AI, with one person having the actual on and off switch, the control of it. And it's so that the all-seeing eye, this is AI. And so, and if you look and do a little bit of homework on these people, their associations together and who they really are. I mean, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, he's a Rothschild. He's in the bloodline there. And how back, in the toward the end of the Puritan era, that they began to send these families over here. The Rockefellers, the Davies, the Hershey's, all of these families that they sent over here from Europe, bloodlines. And ones that were, because I mentioned in my video about the Illuminati, about how whenever they got to where they were beginning to be too close in relationship to each other, that they were going to have to start marrying like brothers and sisters and stuff, then they started going and mingling themselves with the seed of men, these royalty. They began to mingle with them, and they don't cleave to one another. They don't have no love for one another or anything else. It's just a mutual, mutual benefit to each of them. To keep them viable, to keep their bloodlines going. And so they put their people all over. They, their family, their extended family is huge. And that's how they hide their wealth. How they hide their true wealth is because it's scattered across all of these bloodlines. But they all are, have heaped their treasures together. That's what it's talking about when it says they shall heap their treasures together. What have they done? They've been heaping it together to where now, they estimate that the extended family of all these people they're quadrillionaires. And they own everything. And they're trying to tie it all up, so, sew it on up to where they own everything. The old saying of Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and be happy. Eat the bugs. What do you think he's talking about? They're telling you, they're projecting to you what they intend on doing. What the end game is. That you will own nothing. They will own it all and control it all. And they will move you, they will either through enticement, if you'll turn in your money and take the digital currency, we'll, for every dollar you turn in, we'll put $2 in your account. And if people are still kind of, they'll up the ante. I mean, they'll up it up till you're willing to do it. And we'll put you up in a nice little apartment over here in XYZ city, and it's a 15-minute city. You won't have to drive anywhere. You can take mass transit. You can walk to the grocery store. You can go down to the shoe store. You can you won't have to do anything. We'll take care of everything. Oh, you need a toaster oven? Drone delivers it to you. Then comes and picks it up and takes it back to a central location. And then whenever you want, and I've seen this happening firsthand in cities. I mean, I can see the agenda, smart cities, and these, all of these local governments, because they've all, it's not just at the national level or even the global level. I mean, it's worked its way down to the local city level of these cities that are going to be these smart 15-minute cities, where they're putting these green belts around them. They're connecting all of the parks through these greenways and these biking and walking trails. And then outside of that, we're that's going to be, that's going to be off limits. Like the interior of the country. So, when you hear their rhetoric, and it's like they have to put it out there to you what they intend, what their intention is, being revealed. There's no more in secret and their secret signs and their symbols and all of that kind of stuff anymore. They're actually coming out and telling you what their agenda is, and the new mantra, the new reset mantra, is climate change that they are causing. They're the ones that are doing this. It's not some natural phenomenon that's causing all of this weather chaos. It is a concerted and methodical, planned out agenda. Weather modification. This last hurricane that hit down there in Florida at Milton, I have never, and I grew up down south and I've seen my share of hurricanes and been in them, and I have never seen one overnight pop up down in the Gulf of Mexico. I've never seen one pop up down there, period. Now, they may have, but I've never seen it. Because the conditions generally do not exist down there to facilitate the beginning of a hurricane. It's usually always off the coast of Africa. And all of these patents that they have that openly say, patents that are for the controlling and steering of hurricanes, they've gone beyond that to creating hurricanes. The ability to create hurricanes. And I haven't really watched the video yet, but this Mr. BBB333 or whatever, Mr. BB333 or something like that, got a channel on there. He's always talking about, stuff people are seeing in the sky, UFOs and stuff. But he was saying that people saw this EMP pulse over that area where that hurricane started down there in the Gulf of Mexico. They saw this real, heavy duty EMP pulsing down there. And so they're generating these things with those HAARP systems. I've talked about them, how they can, if you ever, you can go look it up. They talk, you can look up HAARP systems. It's not like it's taboo. But the narrative that they give you as to what they are for is totally different than what they are actually using them for. They're antenna arrays. There's a big, huge field, there of these antennas that have, different kinds of antennas on them. And they're on gimbals where they can be turned in and out like that, or they can be done back and forth. They can be directed in any direction they want to direct them. And they can pulse out up to 3 billion watts. 3 billion watts. And probably more than that now. That's old. Anytime you see, and they're telling you what they can do, they're already beyond that. That's just what they're, revealing to you. And they just say it's for atmospheric research and for communication research. But it's actually for just exactly what they were seeing, these pulses. And because these pulses of energy are very powerful, they will ionize stuff. They'll ionize gases. If there's any kind of gases up there like neon, and there is in our atmosphere, it's got noble gases that are floating around, argon, neon, krypton, xenon, that are mixed in with our atmosphere that are floating around. Well, whenever any kind of energy hits these things, they glow. What do you think causes the aurora borealis? These are gases that are in there, and when, the magnetic North Pole, the magnetic mountain, at the highest point on the earth, the dynamo, basically. The dynamo that generates the electromagnetic field that is responsible for everything. For the power of the sun, the moon, the stars, the aether. And the aether, this guy, he talks that whenever you see these video footage, for example, of these rockets going up, and they hitting something and they're skimming along like that. Because if you ever watch all these launches from NASA, they always go up and they curve like this. They don't never go straight up because they know they're going to hit the aether. When it talks about there in Genesis about the firmament, the waters above being separated from the waters that are below, it's talking about the aether. It is like water. It's a liquid gas, and it's a fifth state of matter. Okay. Currently, our understanding is that there are 4 states of matter. There is a solid, a liquid, a gas, and a plasma. These are the 4 states that matter can take. Take for example water. At 32 degrees and lower, it freezes into ice and it becomes a solid. Above 32 degrees, it becomes a liquid. Above 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level, it becomes a vaporous gas. And then above that, if it is highly energetic, it can become a plasma. Okay, so water can become all of these states. The aether is the 5th state of water. at absolute zero, 0 degrees Kelvin, which is minus 456 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes a gaseous liquid. It's no longer a solid, it's no longer a liquid, it's no longer a gas, but it is some combination of it. And it circulates around the magnetic mountain like a dynamo, like a motor. And it circulates around, but it actually has density. And when you look through a telescope at like the moon and these other heavenly luminaries and bodies, you can see waves, like a wave moving across the face of them. Like the waves in the water. Because that's what the aether does. The aether is the medium through which energy is transmitted. Whenever you take a stone like a pebble and you throw it into the water, you see all these waves move away from it. Okay? But if you take and throw a pebble on the ground, you don't see anything. I mean, you might if it's like sand and you throw it down in there and you'll see like a little, just a little temporarily kind of a little wave, and you have like a little hump of sand there. But it's suppressed. In order to transmit energy freely, light, it doesn't matter. Electromagnetism becomes the whole entire spectrum from infrared to X-rays and gamma rays. I mean, it's the whole spectrum. And it has to have some kind of a medium to be able to travel through it. It has to have something there in order for them waves to be able to be propagated. And that is what the aether does. That's why you see these waves moving across these luminaries and heavenly bodies. Because there is energy moving through it, and that energy creates these waves. And they understand that. And the thing is whenever they're beaming this energy up, they're bouncing it off of the aether. They can't penetrate that. I mean, they might at the lowest level of it, they can like nose into it with these big, powerful rockets like the Saturn V rocket. They could, just barely nose the nose of it in there, and then had another rocket that would kick off a little ball satellite that come off there like Echo 1. That's what they did. They nosed into it, and they released it with a little rocket that shot it up into there. And then it expanded, this balloon expanded out of there into that lower, reaches of the aether. But if you can go look at this Go Fast rocket that they launched back, I think it was in like 2011 or somewhere along in there, amateur rocket, and it went up, and it's the highest that an amateur rocket has ever went. It went up 73 miles, and when it got to that 73 miles, it's like boom. It stopped dead. And it said, see, it hit the dome. No, it did not hit the dome. If it hit the dome, it would have went into a million pieces and exploded. No, it hit the aether. And the aether is more like a, sort of viscous. It's got like a viscosity to it. And so it has density. And so whenever it hit, it was like hitting into a, kind of a gel or something, like if you like, and it stopped it. It couldn't go any further. And so the only way that anything can go into that is if it has an energy field around it. Because it is, again, it's a medium through which energy travels. So these fallen ones in their UFOs and stuff, they can go into it. Because if you notice how, like you see these globes, these white people's always showing these photos of these white globes, moving around up there. Well, that's the energy field around them that allows them to go into the aether. the luminaries. They're entities. These stars, they're entities in these ships or whatever, craft. And they're up there, and they're just, they have courses that they are commanded to follow, and there's some that leave their courses. Whenever, and of course, there's some whenever they're commanded to go do something or stop. One of these other ones that are wanting to do some mischief, the restrainer, Michael, and Gabriel and others, they are assigned to restrain these others, these fallen ones. They are assigned, okay, you restrain these. They can only do what I allow them to do, and if they go to try to do anything other than that, then you stop them. I mean, go read the story of Daniel and Gabriel. He was being held up by the prince of Persia for 21 days until Michael came and helped him. Well, who was the prince of Persia? Hasatan, the Satan, because only Michael can deal with him. So they're up there in the aether, and if they're doing what they are supposed to be doing, they stay in a certain orbit and they go around, and there's stars and all that, and they're in this aether, this like a water, sort of like a water, but it's a different state of water. It's the fifth state of matter. And it's and that's the thing. Whenever they got up there with that go fast rocket, they had the instruments on there that were taking readings of the speed and the air pressure and the velocity and the temperature. And I mean, even before they got to where the aether was, I mean, the temperature was already getting down into the minus 250, minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit range. And by the time they got up there near it, I mean, it was down below 400 degrees. So just getting even up there close to it, the cold is sinking out, because cold, heat goes to cold. So if you have a cold surface, heat will be attracted to it. Opposites attract. I mean, it's kind of a law of physics or whatever. So that outer surface of it right there is being, heat's coming to it, but it's so massive and so cold that it cools everything. I mean, that's the reason, even down at the level where they fly planes, I mean, minus 150 degrees, at 30,000 feet, and we're talking 73 miles. That's like 350,000 feet. But it's believed, because we don't know, because it tells us if we can search out the height of the firmament or the depths of the foundations of the earth, then he will forget his people Israel forever. And he's not going to forget his people, because we cannot find or search out the height of the firmament, because nobody's ever been up to the height of the firmament. They've been to the dome where it comes down and meets the earth. They've been to it. Where it comes down and sets on the circle of the earth, they've been to that. They know it's there. But the top of it, right above Polaris there, where Polaris is, and then above that's where the temple and the throne of Elohim is. They've never been there. No one has. Not no human. You can't get there, because you can't get through the aether. And so, these people telling you they're only going up to that 73-mile mark, and that's as far as they can go. And this is what's funny is, Bill Nye, the science guy, one of the priests, high priest of scientism, came out on one of his programs talking to these young people that, kids and all that watch his program, telling them, you can't leave the earth. You're in an enclosed system. See how the truth's being revealed? And then you hear people like Nancy, Hillary Clinton talking about the glass ceiling. Oh, we're going to break the glass ceiling. Yep, we're working toward it. We're working towards, there's cracks in it, and we're working towards breaking it. She wasn't talking about the glass ceiling that prevents women from being in positions of power. Their intention is to break that. And you can listen to, see, and they know the truth of it all. But they wanted to, Satan wants to deceive mankind. It ain't about, his minions and his the Nephilim and the demons and the fallen angels and all that. They all know. And then all these humans that have, decided to join in with them and form a league with them, the kings and the rulers of the earth that have joined them and are in league with them because of the promise of power and longevity and, great wealth and, all that. They know. They know the truth. And they laugh at us. Us deplorables. They laugh at us because they know the truth. And then they put it out in your face, like in the song Skyfall that was written for the movie Skyfall, the James Bond movie. They are saying in there, at Skyfall, we are going to stand tall. They're going to be waiting, to make war against the one who's, is seated upon the throne. Because they're going to see him. Because it does say that the heavens are going to be rolled back like a scroll. And they're going to see the one who sits upon the throne. They're going to see the light. Because they're not going to see him. They're just going to be seeing the blinding light. And his Mashiach, who is coming. And that's when they start heading to their bunkers. And then the caves and holes in the ground, trying to get away and hide us from the one who sits on the throne. Because they're going, the humans are going to realize, man, we made a big mistake. We sided with the wrong ones. They're going to realize it. And so they're only going to have one choice, and that is to fight. And that's what they're going to do. And you can even see this video, and I've talked about this before, about this video that's by the rock group Korn. I do not listen to the lyrics. I turn the volume down when I watch it, but you can watch it, and it shows the firmament breaking apart and coming down big chunks. It talks about it coming down like millstones, and all the cities of the world being leveled, destroyed. Well, how is it possible? And how is it possible to see Hamashiach when he returns? It says the whole world will see him. How? It's impossible on the globe. And because of all the destruction that's going to have gone on, there ain't going to be no CNN and MSNBC. No, they're going to be seeing them with their own eyes. They ain't going to be seeing it on the TV screen. I mean, so, they know this stuff. They know that there was this, and they've been doing everything they can to try to cover it up. That's why, a lot of these books that you hear about, like Mercator, he was a map maker and stuff, and he mentions this book, and there's not a single page of it anywhere known to exist. He talked about several different books, and there's none around. Can't find them. Well, I'm sure they are, and they're probably in the Vatican Library, or one of these elitist, royalty or somebody's libraries. And I mean, it describes the North Pole, and where the magnetic mountain is, and the vortex, the water is falling down around it, and that mountain is 33 miles around. It's just a big piece of magnetite or something is what it is. And water, all the water from the oceans is coming there and it's falling down into that vortex, and it creates a big circulation around there that water going down back into the earth and getting recirculated back out somewhere else. And there's 4 streams, and there around it there's like 4 continents that are surrounding it. And and it's broken apart by 4 rivers that come through there and then fall down into that vortex. And this is on these ancient maps, the Mercator map, and there's another one that shows same thing. It shows this, but then after that it disappears off the maps. And now whenever you look on Google Earth and look up there, it just shows you Greenland. So, they've done everything they can do to try to hide the fact that there was a civilization that was reset, that had reached a real high level of sophistication and technology, and they got rid of it, and they started this new one, and and they done this, took all these orphans and stuff, and they programmed them and brainwashed them to carry out their agenda, and to keep all that stuff hush hush, and to help them with the erasing of it, or erasing of history. Because there's that period there was the Dark Ages. They would, nobody, everybody was superstitious, and they didn't record anything, and they didn't write nothing down, and they burned all the books, and sure they did. No, they just are hiding that error and that period of time, and they have all the stuff from that period of time, all the writings, all the books, all the manuals, manuscripts, and everything else that was generated during that time of that civilization that created all of those old world structures, the star forts, and these star forts are so geometrically precise. You could not build one unless you could look at them from above. You would have to be able to get up above them. And of course, the time period they're saying that they didn't even have balloons then. Because I think it was in the late 1500s when a Frenchman made the first balloon. I think it was in the 1500s, maybe even in the early 1600s, but that created a hot air balloon, and you can't control it. I mean, there's not much control to a hot air balloon. You kind of go, you're at the mercy of the wind. I mean, you can do a little bit to try to control it, but not much. You can't. And so that would not have been a viable option. They had to have some other method, some kind of flying machines or something, in order to get up and look down and see these structures, because they were made with such a geometrical precision that we couldn't duplicate that today. And of course, they're trying to claim that these things were built by people in the 1700s and 1800s. So I do agree with a lot of what he has to say on this video, and I would suggest that you go watch it. I mean, it's long. It's like 5 hours. It's like 7 segments, 5 hours long, and also too, I mean, he shows where that the Earth is, and the dome and all is way bigger, way bigger than what we think. I mean, it's like 20 times bigger. And that the sun, the moon, the earth, that whole system, it moves. You got this greater earth, and it has land masses, all the way around, huge land masses, bigger than what we are aware of, the continents that we're aware of. But it's like in a procession. The whole thing is like a big clock, if you will. I mean, it's sort of like a great big clock, but Elohim's clock. And the earth and the moon are going around here like the sun and the moon and the stars are going around, and we're moving slowly, but we're moving like every 2,100 years or so. We move like so many degrees, and then eventually we get all the way. We go all the way around. It would over like 25,000 years or something. You would make one full circle around there, and each time you're in a different. Well, zodiac Matzeroth, you're in a different sign. Like now we're going into Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius, and so it's moved over into the sign of Aquarius, and then it'll eventually move into another one, and then another one, and that's our system, our earthly system that we're in, and that whole is 12. And it's a 25,000 year cycle, goes around like that. And then I guess every time one of those 25,000 years cycles is completed, this whole system moves. And then another 25,000 years and it moves. And it just keeps doing that all the way around this thing. And so the sun and the moon, the light moves from this part of the bigger enclosure, the big actual enclosure. And so our system that we're in, it moves. And then 25,000 years later, it moves again. And then 25,000 years later, it moves again until it goes all the way around that greater enclosure, the actual Earth itself. And that the North Pole, as we are, that magnetic mountain is in the center of this great, big, huge flat plane. It's in the center, and we're like moving around like a minute hand or like an hour hand. Our system that we're in, the Earth or the flat Earth part of it, that it's over at that particular time. There's the sun and the moon and the stars, the luminaries and all that are in that section, and that section moves around. Like each time it moves, that's like an hour, would be on our clock. You got 24, so you probably got 24 of these. And they depict these clocks. They have these clocks on these old world structures that have a great big dial on them, and then they got another little small dial like this here that is moving around. I mean, it's uncanny. It's right there in our face. They're telling you, and that's what a clock. If you look at it, it's 12 hours, the 12 constellations, and they're going around the and each time you move to the next hour, that's when you're in a new constellation. It's kind of uncanny. I mean, but it's right there in our face, but they've done such a good job of distracting us away from it, noticing that stuff. And people like this guy that done that, and I don't know what really brought him to it, if he just was one of these kind of people that's a real deep researcher, does real deep research and a lot of reading and studying and looking in some of these old libraries, looking for, books and stuff from way back, because if you get, for example, the Webster's Dictionary 1828 edition, I believe it is, there's all kinds of terms and stuff in there that are out of them now, like Tartaria, mud flood, all these different things that Webster put in there that they've taken out of succeeding versions. Same thing with encyclopedias. I mean, there's subjects and words and stuff in there that are not in there now. You got to go back and try to find. That's the reason some people are really, they're willing to pay quite a bit of money to find and get some of them old dictionaries and old encyclopedias, because of the stuff that's in there that you can't get no more because they've been erased. They've been taken out. And so, and we were talking about some of the pseudepigrapha books, which are extra biblical texts. And, some of them I'm not, I always use the canonical scriptures, and I believe there was more in there than what there is now. I know I'm convinced that Enoch had been in the scriptures and it was taken out. Now, other ones, maybe like Second Ezra or Ezra, I think they might have been in there too. Because Ezra was also a prophet, and there is a book of his in the scriptures. But there's some that, I'm not really, because they're not mentioned. And I think there's about like 40 different books that are mentioned in the scripture. The Book of Remembrance, the Book of War, the Book of Jasher, the Book of Jubilees, Enoch's quoted in scripture, directly quoted in the Book of Jude, and I think Peter quotes it too in 2 Peter. And so, if it's mentioned in scripture, it's just like there where in Joshua chapter 10, he commanded the sun and the moon to stand still. And it goes on, it says, is it not written in the book Jasher? Well, the reason I think it's pointing that out is that it's basically telling you, if you want to get a little more detail about what was going on, go look in the book of Jasher, as a reference book. The scriptures is kind of giving you the synopsis, the short version of it, just to let you know, hey, this happened. He was able to do this because he prayed and asked Elohim to be able to do it, and he allowed it. And so he was able to command these luminaries. And so, but when you go look in Jasher, it gives you some more details around it and stuff. And it also, it's not just recorded in the scriptures. It's recorded in, the Chinese recorded it. They call it, I think they called it the Long Night. And then the people down in South America, the Mayan, they recorded it and they called it the Long Day. Because, I think if it stopped over there in Israel, then it would be twilight here, but you would be beginning to see the light over here, and it so they had this kind of a twilight there that wasn't dark, but it wasn't daylight, full daylight. It was sort of like in between, and they had this for 18 hours or something, and then so they had this real long daylight, delay in their daylight or whatever, and then the Chinese had just the opposite. They had this real long night, that, it was like a day and a half or something, or whatever, because I think it was stopped for like 18 hours or something. But anyway, it references these extra biblical texts. And so, and of course, we were talking about too, that in the Septuagint, these books that are missing are in there, a lot of them are in the Septuagint, Greek Septuagint version of the Old Testament. So, they want to misdirect, they want to get you away from this stuff, but according to what Yahushua said there, that all that stuff's going to be revealed. Everything that's been kept secret, everything's been covered, everything that was spoken in secret is going to be shouted out from the rooftops, and it's being shouted out. That's what these, people that are on YouTube and in conferences and stuff all over the world, they're coming out, and these people that are behind it all, they are in a rush. They're in a rush to bring about this new reset. To enter us into this technocracy. And, you listen to the rhetoric of people like Joe Biden, build back better. Well, in order to, build back, that means you got to tear down, doesn't it? So that's what's going on now. They're destroying everything, tearing it down so they can have this great reset. Because part of it is that the system's gone broke. all the money has been concentrated up into these few people's hands, and there is no wealth and money left. So, what is going to happen is you're going to have utter chaos. I mean, people, will go, and that's what they want. They want to eliminate a whole lot of people that are not on board with their agenda, that are not going to go along with it, that are not going to side with them against the Most High and His anointed. So, I hope, I know this is kind of just, convoluted, kind of a lot of stuff to take in, but that's why I'm kind of just bringing out some of the highlights of what was in this, I guess you would call it sort of a docuseries or whatever, but I think it's really interesting, and I would encourage you to go look it up, the Lost History of Earth. And I think the name of the channel is like Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Stars or something like that, APP. And they have a lot of stuff on there, but this guy that done this, and they're just reproducing it. His name, he goes by Inwaranon or something like that. Inwaranon is his handle. I mean, I meant to go and try to look it up on YouTube and see if he actually has his own channel or something. But I haven't. But I watched it in like 2 settings. I mean, in fact, if I'd had the time, but I've got stuff I have to do, so I can't just sit there and watch something for 5 hours. But I could have. I've got an attention span like that. I can sit and watch something that I really am interested in. I mean, but one of the things they've done is they have so dumbed down our young people in this TikTok. They every step, originally it was like movies, or plays. You go into a theater and you watch a play and there's all these acts, like Hamlet and Shakespeare and stuff that kept you there, and you had to have an attention span. And then, movies, the silent movies, about an hour long or whatever, and then, the talkies, and they got up to a peak of like about 2 hours, and then now it's starting to go down to where, like here on YouTube, most people, if you look, the videos are not going to be more than 30 minutes, if they can get around it. 20 minutes, and most of the time like 10 minutes. And so people's attention spans are getting ever and ever diminished. And now it's TikTok, 30 seconds, and they're just doing like this right here. I mean, I watched these, people, was observing these kids that, they were all in like a group around each other, and they're all on TikTok. And they didn't no attention span. They can't sit there and focus on anything. And they don't want them to. Because if you start focusing, then you begin to question. You begin to question the narrative. Well, you're telling me this, but that's not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm observing. It's like I was talking about, the questions I used to ask was not like what this guy here is talking about, but I would just say, well, what happened to us? How is it that we can't build stuff like that anymore? Where did that information go? Where did that knowledge go? Where did that that ability go? That craftsmanship? How come is it that, all the stuff that we're building is, chintzy, man? And I don't think it's just because of cost. I think it's just because we can't. We don't have that knowledge anymore. They've concealed it. They've hid it. They've took all that knowledge and hidden it so that they can build back better, build their own control system. And with technology and stuff that no one but the very ones at the top can understand. Because like I said, if you look at the collaboration and the, between these people, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Sergey Win, Zuckerberg, and, all these other technocrats, the guy at Amazon, Bill Gates, all these people, all conglomerated up around over there at Silicon Valley, over there around San Francisco, all over there, all these technocrats. and how the real they talk about, oh, China's catching up to us, that's malarkey. The real technology and all of that stuff is right here in America. There's the technology that they allow out there, like ASMR, this company over there in the Netherlands. They make these lithography machines that etch the microelectronic circuits onto silicon. It's a mask. It's like a mask where it's a real high wavelength, ultraviolet, and it goes through this mask and it puts an image onto the silicon, and then they etch it. They remove everything off of there other than that image, and then they can put their chips and all their components on there. These microscopic components. Well, that's what they allow Intel and AMD and TSMC and all them to have. And of course, they restrict that technology to China. They only allow them to have up to a certain level of smallness. But that's what they allow for the commercial market. The real stuff, the stuff that goes 5 generations or more beyond that, is right here. They do not allow it out to anybody else. They are way beyond that stuff. What we see, what Intel's, the latest Intel chip, and all that stuff. Yeah, that stuff's pretty advanced, but it's nothing like what the military industrial complex has. They're probably at a level where it's all optical stuff, optical chips and optical processors and optical, quantum type stuff. They're on beyond that, etched on silicone stuff. And so, the all the collaboration, I mean, if you look here in America, yeah, all our manufacturing's been farmed out, but there's research parks everywhere around here, and they Silicon Valley, Austin, Research Triangle Park, Washington, around Washington, Boston, the 138 corridor, all these different places where they got these technology centers, and even in upstate New York, IBM's, and IBM's one of the ones that really is on the deep cutting edge of a lot of this technology. That goes beyond what they turn out to us. I mean, I'm talking about they're in deep collaboration with the military industrial complex to produce generations beyond what, I'm talking about chips or whatever that have trillions of components on them instead of billions. And and then the directed energy weapons and all that stuff I've talked about before, like the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory out there, the NIF facility. That was just a prototype. That was the first one to develop the technology and the manufacturing capability to build these petawatt lasers. And so they there's no telling how many of them facilities they got. They're forever building stuff like that, just like that place out there in Utah that they built that is supposedly a data warehouse processing center that everything goes through. Every bit of data, communications, and all that stuff in the world goes through it. They monitor and watch every bit of it. And supposedly this facility is 5 times more massive than the Pentagon, and the Pentagon's 11 million square feet. So you're talking 55 million square foot facility that is all the communications, satellite, microwave, cables, fiber optic, whatever kind of way it travels communication-wise, radio, shortwave, you name it. They're capturing all of it, everywhere. And they're deciphering it and they're storing it. They know everything's going on. And they've got the computing power to help them sort it all out. And now they got the AI. You know, the AI is that's the ultimate goal. And they're, you know, this Sam Altman's trying to get the federal government to help fund these data centers that will use 5 gigawatts of power. That's enough to power a city of 1 million people. Why? Because they want, you know, Sam Altman's the one that come up with this Chat GPT. And what it is, they are out, you know, I told you they got a competition to see who can make the AI that takes over all the other AI. That wins out, that is the ultimate AI that can monitor and watch and hear and see and do everything. And so it's just something to kind of get people to think, you know, to realize just how we've been duped. All these lies. And it makes you to the point where you don't know that you can't trust anything. You cannot trust anything that these people say or do. That's why I was talking about, you know, whatever the medical people tell you to do the opposite. Whatever they tell you is good to eat the opposite. Because they do not have your interest at heart at all. The only one that really has your interest at heart is Yahuwah Elohim and our Mashiach Nagid, Yahushua HaMashiach. They have our interest at heart. And they are trying to guide us to this truth by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, so that we won't be deceived. Because these people are masters at deception. I mean, they've done it right in our face, and we didn't see it. Now we are. Those who have eyes to see, and those who have ears to hear. Let them hear what the Ruach is saying. He's telling us. He's showing us. He's revealing it. It's up to us, though, to receive it and to use it, to not be deceived by these people. If we know what they're doing and we know what their game is and we know how they operate, they can't deceive us. You got to know the enemy. Know your enemy. Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu, the art of war. Know your enemy. They practice this stuff. It's required reading at West Point for the military to study Sun Tzu, the art of war. Because it's not just about kinetic war, it's about psychological war. We're in a war right now. The West and the East. There's a war going on right now. It's just not kinetic. It's not a hot war. It's an information war. It's a psych war, psyop war. That's the reason you can't, you know, you have to take everything you hear and, you know, with a grain of salt. It's like the old man used to say, don't believe anything you hear and half of what you see. And with this revolution in AI and its ability to do deep fakes and stuff, it's going to get harder and harder. It's going to come down to discernment. Like I said last week, if your eye be dark, then we got to have discernment. We got to have this discernment so that we can see through this deception, this lie, these lies, deceptions. And whenever this lawless one, this man of sin, this Antichrist, shows up on the scene, I mean, he's going to be so smooth. He's going to get things done that people would not believe could be done. Miracles. Miracles ain't always turning water to wine. Miracles can be accomplishing things politically, like peace between countries and between peoples and ethnic groups and all. Achieving things that nobody else believed could be done can be considered miracles. And so don't be deceived by it. Because that's the age in which we are living. It's the age of disclosure and revealing, but it's also an age of incredible deception. Because the people who would not receive the love of the truth are given over by Elohim to a strong delusion. They're the very people that when they hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say, well, we believe the earth is a oblique spheroid. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me you don't know that it's an oblique spheroid? Or maybe it's a pear shape. Oh, maybe? I thought y'all went to the moon. I thought you took all these pictures of the earth. But you think maybe? But you see them people that have been given over to the strong delusion, all they hear is the earth is a oblique spheroid. They don't hear the we think. They don't hear the maybe. Because they have been given over to this. Because they would not receive the love of the truth. They don't have a love for the truth. Well, if you don't love truth, you're going to be deceived. That's why, and these people that say, well, if you're a truth seeker, you don't have the truth. There's all kinds of truth. This is the primary truth, the foundation. But there can be truth of all kinds. It doesn't have to necessarily just come from there. But there are self-evident truths, like Benjamin Franklin was fond of saying, called truisms. There are some things that are so obviously true that they cannot be any other thing. The sky is blue, the grass is green, coal is black. Now, whoever or whenever they established this as the, okay, we're going to call the sky blue. Well, I'd say it probably come from right here. And grass is green. And coal is black. But it's been established that that is a truism. 2 + 2 is 4. Even though they try to tell you it's 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 4. It's always been that. There's no changing it. It's a truism. And so the things that, and not only that, the heavens declare the glory of Elohim, and the firmament showeth forth his handiwork. And the things that are made reveal the things that are not seen. Them little specks called atoms and stuff. They are revealed in the things that are made. But for those who are given over to this strong delusion and deceived, they cannot see it. They don't have the eyes to see. They don't have the ears to hear. And they do not have the heart with the understanding to see these things and to know these things. So they are deceived. But it's because their focus is on the world. It's not focused on the things of Elohim. And so, in the first order of business, when you are focused on the things of Elohim, is truth. Truth. Let Elohim be true and every man a liar. His word is truth. That's where we need to focus at. Not on the things of the world, because they are all meant to distract us and to draw us away from Him. And the more you focus on Him, the more, He will reveal, He will give you the desire of your heart. And Christ said, anything that you ask for in my name, if it's right, He'll give it to you. He'll reveal it to you. But it has to be right. Your motive has to be right. Not to know it to get advantage over somebody or anything. To know it so you're not deceived. and know it to help other people not be deceived. And so truth can come in many forms and many places, and it is important for us to be able to discern what is really true and what is not, especially in the age in which we live in, because it's going to get harder and harder with all this AI and stuff, deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to replace everybody. Already replacing these people in Hollywood and stuff. And yet these people keep coming out, blaring, their mantra, and because they're just, satanically puppets, controlled. And so they just mouthpieces. But even they are getting replaced. They can do anything with AI that them people can do. And probably do it better. But anyway, I'm going to quit with my diatribe here. And, again, go watch that. Watch it with an open mind, and just see, like, wow, man, this is crazy, it's crazy. But it's, and I'm thinking about watching it again because there's so much there to take up. Like I said, it's seven different segments, 5 hours and 2 minutes, I think. Go watch it, and I'm going to call it a end of the Shabbat. I love you, folks. I thank you for joining me. I thank all of you who have subscribed and leave your thumbs up and stuff. And I hope that all of you will be blessed and that you'll have a good week. And until next time, if Yahweh was willing, I'll see you on the next Shabbat.